I talk to you guys about small towns and their mentality, what they're like, and what drives the behavior of small towns. So let's start out off with characteristics. Let's get right to it. First symptom of a small town is slow pace of life. People are generally chilled out, things are going at a very slow pace, and they're essentially just doing the same thing over and over again. That's symptom two, the doing the same thing over and over again. There's a repetitiveness to small towns. People have routines. They generally stick to the routines. They become a bit rigid within those routines as they don't like the routines to be shooken up. The third point related to that resistance of things being shooken up is resistance to change. People in small towns become accustomed to small town life, small town lifestyle. They like the predictability and the ease of knowing what's going to happen, and anything that throws them just a little bit, anything that changes their routine can be deeply upsetting to them. The fourth characteristic, or should I say symptom, of a small town is small town gossip. If you live in a small town or visit a small town, what you'll find is people constantly see each other. They'll see each other in the supermarket randomly, or in the park, or at the beach, and there's this constant seeing one another, perhaps watching one another and gossiping about one another. It just naturally happens. Humans do it, and small towns are loaded with those sorts of behaviors and those sorts of interactions, just by nature of the smallness of the town. So people know each other's backstories perhaps a bit too much. It can be really uncomfortable and can feel really limiting and very claustrophobic as well. Along that claustrophobia theme, people in small towns have small town mentalities. They like things to stay the way they are. They like their lifestyle to remain the same, predictable and reliable. They also tend to have subpar ambitions, meaning people living in small towns have achieved a certain degree of success or lack thereof, and they don't like to vary from that. Everyone who lives in small towns has some type of social group, some type of group of friends, and those groups of friends set the expectation when it comes to success. And generally in small towns get a lot of people who haven't moved out, or have moved out but come right back, maybe haven't made it in the world in a city, or just love that small town vibe, and they're not always the most successful people. And so what happens in some of these small towns is they establish this culture of subpar achievements, where not achieving things is somewhat valued, that let's just all stay on the same level. We don't want to shake things up. We don't want to make anybody uncomfortable if we have any success. So just whatever kind of career you have, whatever role you have, just try not to excel too much, because if you do, it's going to upset the status quo of this subpar lifestyle, and it's going to make us feel insecure if we haven't hit the achievements that you have. And so that norm gets maintained when someone from a friend group has success. Their, should I say, colleagues or their friend group may start to turn on them as they have success, because they will become jealous of that person's success, and they'll want to, bring them down back to their level. And they'll do that when the person who's having success maybe mentions something about the work, and their friend groups will either shun them, or will get silent when they're talking about their ambitions, or they'll start to mock their ambitions. And so that type of social behavior is limiting and claustrophobic for the ambitious minded person. With that frame of reference, it's one reason why small towns can be pretty toxic and very limiting when it comes to career ambition, because these friend groups are not supportive. They are doing everything they can to prevent your success. And so generally you'll get a departure between the success-minded person and his or her friends, because that success-minded person is going in a different direction with their life and their career than their friends, who they're essentially leaving behind. And there's no real resolution towards that, because as time goes by, the person who's making those strides in their career is going to continuously distance themselves further and further from their friends as their success becomes greater and greater, and their lifestyle becomes more and more comfortable, or more and more extravagant. And the resentment that will build from those friends towards that ambitious individual only grows, and there's just no stopping it. So there you have it. That's just a little bit of a review of the small town syndrome and the drawbacks and limitations of living in a small town and facing the resistance to your own success from those so-called friends.